just spent 200 hours on a piece of cross-stitch, maybe more. You've counted, you've frogged, you've held it up to the light and felt genuinely proud of it. And now you're standing in a craft store holding a $12 frame, about to make a decision that will either protect that work for the next 30 years or slowly ruin it. So let's talk about the question I get asked more than almost any other: glass or no glass?
I'm Tracey Kramer. I design counted cross-stitch patterns at Sunrays Creations, and I've been stitching since the early 90s. Hundreds of finished pieces. And I'll tell you something that might surprise you. I still think this decision through every single time I finish something. The answer is never quite the same twice, because it depends on the piece, on where it's going to live, and on who's going to be looking at it. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through the whole thing. The real argument for and against glass, the 4 kinds of glazing, and which one is worth your money, every material you need to frame a piece yourself at home, and how to care for it once it's on the wall. One thing before we start. I know some of you would rather read than watch, or you're partway through a project right now, and you need the answer without sitting through 8 minutes. So I've written all of this out in full on our website. Every glazing type, every material, the measurements, the care instructions. Scan the QR code on the screen, or the first link in the description will take you straight there. It's free, there's nothing to sign up for, and it'll still be there when you need it. All right, glass or no glass? There are 2 honest camps here, and both have a real point. The case for glass is preservation. Cross-stitch is a textile. It's fabric, and fabric is vulnerable in ways a photograph isn't. Smoke yellows it, dust settles down into the stitches and becomes almost impossible to get out without damaging the threads. Humidity makes the fabric pucker and warp. Sunlight fades even color-fast thread over years. And then there are the hands. You know exactly the ones I mean. The well-meaning visitor who reaches out to feel the texture and leaves behind oils and lotion and whatever else was on their fingers. Glass is a barrier against all of that. The case for no glass is sensory, and it's not a silly argument. Cross-stitch has texture. Thread catches light in a way that flattens out behind glass. Leave it open and people can see the dimension of the stitches, the slight sheen where the floss turns. Some framers will tell you a textile should breathe. For a small piece, in a low-traffic room, away from a window, honestly, open framing can be lovely. But here's where I land. For anything large, anything that took real hours, anything I'd be heartbroken to lose, it goes behind glass. Every time. Now, if you're going with glass, not all glass is the same. This is one of those places where a little more money makes a visible difference, literally visible. Ordinary picture frame glass is what comes in most off-the-shelf frames. It works, it's cheap, and it has 2 problems. It has a faint green tint from the iron content. You might not notice at first, but hold it in front of a light-colored piece and you'll see it immediately. And it glares. Hang it anywhere near a window or a lamp, and you'll spend more time looking at the reflection of your own living room than at your stitching. Non-glare glass sounds like the fix, and it does kill the glare, but it trades that for fuzziness. The surface is etched, and that etching slightly diffuses everything behind it. On a detailed piece with fine color transitions, you lose the crispness you worked so hard for. Ultra clear or museum glass is the good stuff. No green tint, almost no glare, and most of it filters ultraviolet light. Your piece looks like there's nothing in front of it at all. And acrylic does most of what museum glass does, but it's shatterproof and much lighter, which matters if you have children in the house or you're hanging something big. It does scratch easily, and it attracts static, so handle it gently. The museum-grade acrylic I used on my own Lotus piece is on our tools page, along with everything else in this video.
Scan the QR code on the screen right now, or use the link in the description below. It'll take you straight to the framing section on our website, where I've listed the exact glazing, frames, mats, and backing board I recommend, with a note on each one about why. Here's the part most framing guides skip. You can absolutely do this yourself. A custom framer will charge you $100, $200, sometimes more for a large needlework piece. And a lot of that is legitimate. Conservation materials, matting, skilled labor. But if you're willing to learn the process once, you can get a genuinely professional result at home for a fraction of it. Start with the frame, and know that standard picture frames are not built for needlework. Once your piece is mounted on a backing board, it's thicker than a photograph. You need a deep frame, a shadow box, or a frame with a deep rabbet, which is the groove inside that holds everything together. Look for frames sold for needlework, shadow box work, or stretched canvas. Then, acid-free mat board. The mat does two jobs. It frames the piece properly, and just as importantly, it holds the fabric off the glass, so condensation can never sit directly against your stitches. Acid-free matters because ordinary board leaches acid into fabric over the years and yellows it from the edges in. Then foam core backing. This is what you lace your finished piece over. And lace, don't glue. Never glue. You want to be able to take it apart in 20 years. Foam core is rigid enough to hold a laced edge without bowing, and light enough that the frame isn't fighting gravity. And finally, spacers, if your mat isn't doing that job, to keep a little air between fabric and glazing. The deep shadow box frame, the acid-free mat board, and the foam core are all on that same tools page, grouped together under finishing, so you're not hunting for them one at a time. Scan the QR code on your screen to go straight to the framing section. Once it's framed and hanging, a little ongoing attention keeps it beautiful for decades. Light fading is slow and invisible until suddenly it isn't. You won't see the colors dimming week to week, but look at a piece after 5 years in direct sun and you'll see it plainly. Hang your work away from direct sunlight. Indirect natural light is beautiful and relatively low risk. Humidity is the sneakier enemy. Fabric expands and contracts as humidity changes, and over time, that loosens your mounting, wrinkles the fabric, or in the worst case, lets mold develop behind the glass. So keep framed pieces out of bathrooms and away from damp exterior walls. And when you clean it, never, ever spray glass cleaner directly onto the frame. The mist travels, it gets under the glass and into the fabric, and then you have a stain you cannot reach. Dampen your cloth away from the piece, then wipe. The piece that started all of this for me is one of my own designs. Lovely lotus flower. A single lotus bloom, layered petals, soft pinks against deep jewel tones. It's the one hanging in my house in the morning light, behind museum acrylic, laced over foam core with a warm cream mat. If you'd like to stitch it yourself, scan the QR code on the screen or find the link in the description. So here's where 30 years has left me. I protect my work, not because I'm precious about it. I stitch these pieces to hang them and live with them, but because the hours deserve good stewardship. Cross-stitch isn't a disposable craft. What you make by hand could genuinely outlast you if you take care of it. So don't think of the frame as the thing you do after the real work is finished. Think of it as the last act of the project. The stitching is the heart of it, but the frame is what carries it into the next 30 years. And when you're standing at the framing table with your own finished piece, you won't want to remember all of this from memory. Scan the QR code one more time or use the first link in the description. The whole guide is written out and waiting. Glazing types, materials, measurements, and all. If this helped, subscribe. There's a new one every week, and I'll see you in the next.